Hey guys, my name is Shai and this is Evermind Astro. This video is going to be all about the natal placement moon in Aries. But there's so much we could say about your moon placement, right? So I decided to focus this series on your emotional processing, right? The moon governs so many things in your natal chart. It is your inner world, it is your emotions. There can be something to do with your connection to your mother or your inner mother. It is what you hide from the world. It is your inner sanctum, your inner space, right? One of the things I feel that we don't focus on enough is the emotional processing aspect of your moon, right? Of your moon. So I'm going to be focusing on how does moon in Aries do its emotional processing. And for those who are wondering, I am going to do this series in audio only, and I'm going to return to filming my face later. It's just that honestly, putting my face on the camera is a huge energy drain, and it makes it a lot harder for me to get these videos out there. It makes it take a lot longer. So, and it felt right for the moon videos because it's so internal. It's really hard to be the face of the moon, right? So this is how I'm doing it. I know some people really like to visually connect with the speaker. And for you guys, I'm sorry, but that's how it's going to be. So anyway, moon in Aries. And of course, this may also resonate if you have your moon in the first house. Moon in Aries emotional processing is kind of interesting because you might be tempted to say that Aries moons don't really do emotional processing, right? Aries isn't particularly into sitting around and feeling your feelings. And I really love an Aries moon, by the way. This is one of my favorite placements. It is filled with joy. It is filled with a childlike wonder and glee. Of course, there can be some impulsivity with an Aries moon and definitely an inner hidden independent streak. And of course, you want to think about how this plays out with the rest of your chart. If you have like a fire and water dynamic going on, especially if you have a Pisces or a Cancer sun, this can be really interesting because on like that outer presentation of yourself with that water energy, it can be very like surprising to people, and people might not see this about you, that it's your inner fire, your inner independent streak. And that can kind of create a little bit of a wobble, sometimes a back and forth for those of you with a heavy water emphasis as well, where you're kind of like emotional on the outside and you're empathizing and you're compassionate, but then there can be a little bit of a pullback on the inside when something really triggers your or threatens, when something threatens your independence or threatens your individuality, you can really like flame on, right? And want to push back on that. So that's just a little bit of a side note here. But so how does the Aries moon do your emotional processing? I would actually say that, Aries isn't exactly unemotional. It's that the emotions are really quick burn. They like flame on, right? And it's actually the emotions of passions. Aries moon can be very, 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 very passionate about different things. And there can be an element to Aries moon of processing your emotions through your body, and especially through actions that are fueled by passion. Of course, not all people with Aries placements are going to be athletic and into, working out and stuff like that. But there always is a little bit of an element if you have an Aries moon to, use your passions, use those kind of fiery, intense emotions to fuel some kind of physical activity, right? It can be literally anything, but it's probably going to be something more like explosive, like yoga is probably not going to do it for you, right? It could be more something like going for a run or boxing, honestly, or cycling, playing rugby, right? Like anything that kind of gets your muscles going in an active kind of way where you're moving around and engaging with the world around you, right? That's going to be really healthy for you. And especially like if you're listening to this, right, you're probably more of a spiritual type of person, right? You're probably not necessarily, like a jock type of person. So you might find through your life that you have to learn about getting yourself to do more physical engagement, and you might have to discover how that really helps you work out your emotions. Like after going to the gym and really hitting the weights, you might find that, wow, you just feel better because you actually got that energy out. So one of the ways that Aries moon processes its emotions is by like translating them through the physical body and releasing them through activity and action. And that's pretty cool. And once you've really figured out like how that works for you, because it's going to be different for everybody and it needs to be something that you find enjoyable. Once you figure out the trick, how it works for you to release your emotions through physical expression, right? Going to be really good. That could be a game changer for you. And of course, it doesn't have to just be about athletics, right? This is even about expressing yourself through how you dress and like how you carry yourself through the world. And it is this translating your emotions through the physical vessel, even through sex, honestly, which sometimes people think that's all Scorpio, but there is an Aries element to that as well. So the other thing I think is worth mentioning here is that Aries moon, not necessarily very sentimental, right? You know, those kind of lingering emotions where people really have like a keepsake box full of mementos from old relationships, maybe keeping old love letters and stuff like that. And for some people, those kind of sentimental objects, right? Sentimental objects where they can really review the past. For some people, that's very, very important. And you're more than just your Aries moon, so that might also be important for you. But I would say for Aries moon, there's definitely a trend where that type of like dwelling on the past, that kind of actively cultivating nostalgia, that really hanging on to sentimental objects, especially in terms of like relationships, is probably not going to be very healthy or natural to you, right? And if you find yourself with kind of a box of old love letters, or the t-shirt that your ex was wearing on the day that you met, you might find that like the literal presence of those objects kind of drags you down, and you might find yourself having a boyfriend bonfire type of situation where actually getting rid of those objects is going to help you process your emotions. So you can really think about how it's not just like expressing it through your body, but also the objects in your house, the things you're hanging on to. Because Aries, not that Aries is minimalist or really ascetic, that's not really anything to do with it. It's just that Aries moon is not really going to thrive by having a lot of baggage, by having a lot of clutter, by having a lot of stuff, right? all of those that stuff, it'll drag you down, because Aries wants to be fast, it wants to be fiery, it wants to be free, right? So the more kind of clutter, stuff, junk, emotional baggage, you really want to be burning through that as much as you can to help you get to that point of like emotional clarity. And I think emotional clarity for an Aries moon is going to feel like I am me, I am myself, and it's this fiery inner strength. And it doesn't really have anything to do with anybody else, right? It's not like a strength that you put against anybody. Sometimes, there's this whole misconception about Aries is all about warfare and conflict and violence. And I mean, that is just one particular element of very low vibing Aries. And that's not really what Aries is about, right? Aries is more about just the self, the fire of the self, the individual. Ooh, getting so many good shivers on this, right? So you want to be kind of clearing out, like as you're doing your emotional processing, as you're letting go of the past in your life, as you're letting go of, your childhood baggage and past relationships, and if you're moving to a new house or something like that, or like shifting eras in your life and you're really having to, be in your feelings and process your emotions, keeping things clean and clear and kind of focused on your own energy is going to serve you quite well. And what I will say here is that Aries moon, there is a potential for like eruptions of intense emotions, a little bit like Scorpio, and think about it, because Mars rules Aries, and traditionally Mars also ruled Scorpio, and these are like very intense type of signs, right? So especially if you have something going on with Pluto or Scorpio involved in your chart, right? Aries can have very intense, explosive emotions, and that's because you're going to want to do your emotional processing faster, right? You don't want lingering, long emotions. And you might be challenged at some parts in your life when you find yourself in kind of a long, slow goodbye, a long, slow transition, right? Kind of that energy of, being in grade 12 or your last year of high school, whatever you call that, where you live, right? Where the shift is happening and the change is happening and that everything's going to change and you're saying goodbye to a lot of things. Aries moon is going to want to get that over with, right? Get that on with. And sometimes in life, you have to go through the long, slow transition. That's going to be kind of uncomfortable to Aries moon. You could get really, really, really impatient and frustrated by the long slowness of the transition. So when you're finding yourself in those, you're going to have to be, again, working that frustration out through your body, tiring yourself out, staying distractive. And one thing I haven't talked about enough yet is staying creative, right? Funneling your passion and your energy through some kind of creative outlet, which could be, that could be going out partying. That could be, making your art, making your music, writing something. That can be travel. It can be any type of athletics or sports that moves your body. Those are the things that come to mind, right? Getting the energy worked out. You need to keep the energy moving, right? And always thinking of the flame, right? I'm just thinking of the flame. It's like you want to be managing the campfire, right? When you're sitting around the campfire and you're throwing logs on the fire, right? You're throwing logs on the fire. Sometimes that fire can get out of control before you know it because you put too much fuel on the fire. So, and if you want to cook some hot dogs or make some s'mores, you have to make sure that you let that fire simmer down to a nice glowing embers, right? Nice cooking coals. So I'm just thinking of this. This is a little bit of an analogy of how you want to manage your emotions, where you kind of want to be feeling inside of yourself for your own inner fire and kind of feeling for how much fuel do you want to put on the fire, right? You might find that sometimes when you're in that long, slow transition or the long, slow process, that it's actually really good for you because it's kind of managing the blaze, okay? It's managing the blaze. And I know with Aries, you might feel like, yeah, just bring it all on. Let's do this. Go, 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 right? And wanting to just let the blaze become enormous. And so you have the capacity to kind of be this enormous blaze, right? You have that capacity. However, there's going to be, you could get burned that way, right? And you could get exhausted and you could get burnt out and it can be a little bit much. So there's something to be said for kind of managing the fire, right? Managing the fire. So I think that's what I'm getting for emotional processing with your moon in Aries. I'm going to leave you guys there. I got lots of links down below. Check me out and I'll talk to you later. Bye.